I'm going to preface this story by saying that I was raised by a killer. My grandfather and grandmother raised me, and when I was 17, my grandfather stalked, kidnapped, and ultimately murdered my grandmother, all because she wanted a divorce. I also happened to marry my ex-husband at the age of 22, only later to find out that his father was a prolific PDF file, assaulting both of my ex's sisters as young as 6 years old. Both are in prison for life, but these are men I was extremely close to, and for a while, I was almost attracted to danger. The warning signs are easily ignored and considered normal when you're used to them. That is, until I started listening to my intuition, and now I can spot these predatory people from way out. They know I recognize them. It's like an unspoken thing, like when you're at a party and you and someone else see something funny, but you don't know each other well enough to say it out loud. So you just look at each other and kind of laugh telepathically. It's only happened twice, as I don't really get out like that. And to be frank, there aren't that many people like this out there. And if they are out there, I'm not adept enough at pointing them all out. But I could tell almost immediately with this man. My mom's friend is a truck driver. My mom has been taking my daughter to play with his daughter on little play dates. They met at a church group. Come to find out later that this church group is a weird extremist version of Christianity, where they believe all white people are evil, and they are the chosen ones, rather than the Jews and a whole bunch of other weird shit. It's truly a cult. I became uncomfortable with my mom taking my daughter to these playdates once I realized just how disturbed their combined beliefs were. I didn't want to cut off the playdates cold turkey for the sake of the kids, so I started taking time off work to join them, and told my mom that this man wasn't allowed around my daughter without me being there. When I first met him, he was charming and sweet, funny but annoyingly jolly, and clearly trying way too hard to appear innocent and sweet. He used this soft voice to make me comfortable, and incessantly talked about being protective to make himself seem more manly. He told me weird things like that his daughter wasn't allowed to wear pants, only dresses. Then he kept offering me drinks, one after the other while we were hanging out with our kids. Not a big deal on its own, but I'm not a drinker, and especially not on play dates, and I made this very clear to him. While we were sitting down watching the kids, at the beach this time, he set up a little blanket area and told me that I could come closer. I didn't know how to react other than to say that I needed to sit where I was sitting to see the kids better. I already had been sitting on my own blanket, but he kept pushing and said I could see them from here. Here being basically on his lap on the blanket he'd set up. He stared at me silently for what seemed like an hour before I eventually scooted slightly closer to him to not make things more awkward for everyone around. I sat on the edge corner of the blanket and tried to avoid eye contact. Did all I could to focus on the kids, being sure not to have him get any closer to me. I got weird vibes, but figured he was obviously weird because of his culty beliefs, and just shrugged it off as him being the odd person that he is. But my gut was burning for days after that meeting. I also noticed that he spoke really poorly about women, especially his kid's mom. I figured he was just a misogynistic weirdo. He went on a truck run, and when he came back, he immediately wanted to get the kids together again. I told my mom that I had to be there, so we arranged a date and a time where I wasn't working. We went to a paint studio for the kids, and again, the whole time we were there, he was offering me drinks. At an art studio for kids. A place where no drinks were being served. He even ran out to a bar to go get a drink, and then brought it back with him. A beer obscured by a tumbler that he had brought with him, but he was enjoying it surrounded by kids painting bluey portraits. It was actually kind of bizarre for a parent. We went from the art studio to a trampoline park, and as the kids were joking around and jumping and playing, he repeatedly picked me up and threw me into the foam ball pit despite my clear discomfort with the situation, and me even telling him that I wasn't feeling well and asking him to stop. He then pulled me down on top of him while he was lying on the trampoline, to which I got very upset and stormed off, taking my daughter with me. At one point before that, I had gotten a friction burn on my wrist from sliding down the trampoline too fast. He took my wrist, grabbed it hard, then pressed down on the open sore to taunt me. I don't know if this man is just socially awkward or disturbed or what, but my body has never physically reacted so strongly to a person besides my ex-husband's father. I couldn't sleep for days after this. I started smoking cigarettes again, after 10 years of me being clean. My thoughts were racing constantly. I called my brothers and started telling them how odd it was, but ended up crying at the end of our conversations out of pure fear. My stomach was trembling. This whole bout lasted for about 2 weeks. Obviously, I can't say if this dude is a criminal weirdo, but the truck driver occupation paired with his obvious devious nature is not something that I'd ever want to fuck with. Edit. I met this dude twice, and this was about a year ago. I've banned him from our lives, and preferably my mom's, but I can't control her. My kid is barely allowed around my own mother anymore, as I lost trust in her after this. Those of you in the comments, please stop insisting that I cut contact, as it was cut a long time ago. Thinking I'm a bad mom is up to you, but I don't care about those opinions, as I know how vigilant I am with my kid's safety. I started a new job working from home just to be around her so my mother doesn't need to be, among other security measures that have been taken to protect her. Additionally, I don't know enough details about this guy to file a report or go to CPS, and I don't plan on being around him anymore to get more details. I don't even know where he lives, and my mom refuses to give me any more details because she's suspicious of my intentions, since she knows that I think he's disgusting. I even tried asking for their address so I could send a birthday invitation, and she won't give it to me because they don't celebrate birthdays in their religion. All in all, this is a very odd and unique situation, and it wouldn't be easy to get the police onto this man in the first place. So I believe that this is where my interaction with this person comes to an end, and I can only hope that our paths don't cross again. Someone posted on another sub something about security, and for some reason, it reminded me of a really weird occurrence that took place when I was in college. I thought y'all might get a kick out of it. When I was around 20 years old, I'm female for what it's worth, I subleased a friend's place for the summer. It was one of those houses built for college students, in a subdivision that's pretty much all college students. The house had 4 bedrooms. I rented one of them, but the other roommates were out of town for the summer as well, so I was all alone in it. Coincidentally, one of my friends had a younger sibling that needed to find a home for her rescue pit for the summer. I've had boxers all my life, and I've always loved pit bulls. I'd always been curious. To this day, I'm so glad that I had that dog. I swear, she saved me from something that summer. I'm obsessive about 2 things because of who I am as a person: cleaning and locking doors when I leave or when I'm alone, which meant I was locking and setting the alarm a lot that summer because I was all alone. The first night I had that pit, her name was June, by the way, I was a little nervous if I'm being honest. I didn't know until my friend dropped the dog off, but my friend's sibling had just rescued this pit, like less than a month ago. Clearly, I should have asked more questions. I was nervous because this dog was a bit apprehensive about me and fresh out of the shelter or rescue, wherever my friend's sibling had found her. This was obvious by the way she interacted with me, as well as her new surroundings in this home. It was plain to see that June had been abused by whoever her previous owners were. This dog had scars all over her body, and by the looks of it, had semi-recently given birth. Also worth noting, June was hulked out. I mean, this dog was an absolute unit. I'd rehabbed a dog before, so I felt like I was up to the challenge. After all, I had the entire summer and it was just June and I. Note, this house had those magnetic fob locks, a door at the front of the house which faced the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. There was also a door at the back of the house which faced a sort of alley. That's where I parked my car. I locked any and every door anytime I used it, as well as the door to the bedroom whenever I went to sleep. I had June in the room with me. There was an alarm on the house, but the girls that actually lived there never set it up and didn't have the desire to do so, which meant I was relying solely on locks. Night 1. I get into bed direct June to the comfy, plush bed that I put together for her. I laid her toys in it, super soft blankets, the works. I guess June decided, nah, because the next thing I knew, she was in the bed with me, facing me with her head and all those teeth, just a few inches from my face. I barely slept because I was a little on edge. I was scared that I'd accidentally roll onto her foot or something, scare her, and end up with my face being eaten. Yeah, I know that's silly, but it's what was going through my mind as I laid awake, staring at this massive, absolutely jacked dog. Night 2, same thing, except I fall asleep this time. I woke up the next morning to June staring directly into my soul. Great, we're bonding. Night 3, we spent the evening watching movies, snuggling. I shared my pizza crust with her, and she was definitely feeling the love because she finally let me scratch her belly and started to act more like a puppy and less like a recently released inmate. The morning of day 4, I wake up and it's still really early in the morning. We're talking 6:30 a.m. I usually got up around 9 a.m. for my class at noon. As I'm coming out of my sleepy stupor, trying to get my bearings and understand why the hell I'm awake so early, I clock June. June is absolutely snarling at the bedroom door, nearly body slamming it, sniffing the base of it, lunging over and over at the handle. The scene itself was lightweight terrifying, but I wasn't afraid of her at this point. I quickly realized that something or someone is right outside my bedroom door, and they're jiggling the door handle, which I had locked. I do live in Texas, so I grabbed my 12 gauge that I kept under the bed and racked it. It's a very, very old, very loud gun. When I racked it, everything became very quiet. The silence, followed by this dialogue. Me. Who's out there? A random man's voice. Maintenance. We're maintenance. We didn't mean to scare you, ma'am. We're here to fix the dishwasher. Me. I didn't put in a maintenance request, and the dishwasher is in the kitchen on the first floor. Random guy. Yeah, we were told no one was here. I'm training a new guy and I thought I'd show him what most of the houses look like inside. At this point, June is losing her ever-loving mind, and I'm armed, kind of annoyed that these idiots have woken me up so early. That's when it dawns on me that I deadbolted all of the doors. Now, maybe the maintenance people had some way to bypass the deadbolts. I honestly don't know. This was a time when the magnetic fobs were kind of new, or new to the apartments near campus anyway. I should have been more scared, I know that now, but I could tell these guys were shitting their pants between hearing the monster on the other side of the door, as well as my gun. So I cracked the door just a smidge, enough for them to see the gun, as well as June foaming at the mouth. Also so I could get a look at their uniforms to confirm whether they were real servicemen or not. Weirdly enough, there were no uniforms. There were 3 men out there. 2 of them looking like they'd had it rough. They were maybe in their early 40s, and the other guy was no older than 25. All 3 of them were dirty, like they'd been sleeping outside maybe. Their clothes appeared clean, but it's obvious they hadn't showered in a hot minute. I tell them to leave, or I'd open the door and let June out. I tell them I'll call the front office and clear this up, but for now, they need to get out. Sure enough, all 3 of them turned on their heels and walked out of the house. Once the men left, I checked the doors and the back door was unlocked. I'd checked it the previous night before going to bed, and there's no chance that I'd forgotten to lock it. I called the front office the minute it was open at 8 a.m., to which they said they hadn't dispatched any maintenance men that day. And then they asked me for a description of the guys. I'm not sure this group was ever caught, although I certainly hope they were. I've never been so scared in my life. I'd use my gun when hunting, but never once had to point it at a person. In that specific housing complex, at least 5 women were attacked in the weeks before this encounter, so I was definitely on edge. I don't know if these men had anything to do with that, but if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it probably's a duck. I kept June the entire summer, and would have tried to adopt her as we definitely had bonded, and I knew she had my back. I don't think I'd ever felt so safe with a dog. But the place I was moving into wasn't a place that she'd be happy in, as it didn't have a yard and it was really small. To this day though, as I said at the beginning, I'm convinced that June saved me from something truly horrible that morning, and no random guys parading as maintenance men could ever convince me otherwise. This happened when I was 18, so about 14 years ago now. I had just gotten my driver's license. Living in Italy, that's something that you can only get when you're 18. And that summer, my friends and I were spending late nights hanging out in Rome. There were 5 of us this evening, me driving the car along with 4 friends as passengers. At around midnight, we parked in a square in the south of the city with a football to mess around with. It was summer vacation, so staying out late, hanging out with friends, it all felt normal. After we'd been kicking the ball around for a while, a man in his early 30s wandered over, carrying a large duffel bag. This guy didn't look threatening at first, but he was definitely strange. He was skinny, very toned, wearing shorts, beat-up sneakers, a long-sleeve shirt, a baseball cap with a beard and long greasy hair. That wasn't exactly a common look for a man his age where we live. He started chatting with us and then asked if he could join in our game. We were just passing the ball without letting it touch the ground, so after a few minutes, he moved easily into the rhythm. He began asking about our interests, and then oddly deviated into asking about our sex lives. Now, I'm shy by nature, but some of my friends are far more outgoing, and they fell into conversation with him. For some reason, unbeknownst to me, but likely to try to impress us, he started showing off with finger push-ups, pistol squats, and other interesting feats of strength. One of my friends in particular kept egging him on and treating him like a performer, so the guy just kept doing more and more. I should mention something important here. Before we said that he could come play with us, he had dropped his bag between 2 parked cars. One of them happened to be mine. At one point during this interaction, my friend who was joking with the man sent the ball flying a little farther away on purpose, then asked the man to go and get it. While the man sauntered off for the ball, my buddy whispered to me to unlock my car. That's when he ran over, grabbed the man's bag, tossed it into the trunk, and then shouted for us to hurry up and leave. I think we all got swept up in what my friend was doing, so before I knew it, we were in the car driving off. The guy chased us, like running after the car, and being that he was so fit, he was pretty fast, although he disappeared from my rearview mirror after a little bit of distance. I felt terrible about what we had done. I'm not a thief. But when we all heard my friend yell for us to get up and go, I think we panicked. But what was done, and now we were in possession of the bag. We drove back towards our neighborhood, heading towards our homes, but we stopped by a nearby park to check out what was in the bag. The moment that zipper was undone, things took a really creepy turn. Now, in Italy, it's pretty uncommon for people to be armed, so what we initially found was shocking. Underneath the dirty clothes that sat at the top of the bag was a rather large dagger. I don't mean like an ordinary kitchen knife. This is something you likely had to get from a place that specialized in medieval weaponry. We also found some food, along with a small lockbox with a 3-digit combination lock. We obviously didn't have the code, but we were so curious that we smashed the lockbox open by throwing it on the ground until it eventually cracked. Inside the box, we found the ID cards for 16 different women. I think that sent a chill through all of us, and I began worrying about my safety. I mean, we had used my car to take the bag, and that man could have easily remembered my license plate and used it to track me down somehow. I don't know if that's a real thing, but that's where my 18-year-old brain went. We also tried to think who this man could be and why he would be carrying so many different IDs and a dagger. I think that caused everybody's imagination to race. We all kind of wrestled with what to do next, but as a group, we came to the conclusion that we had to tell somebody about this. At best, this was likely a case of repeated theft. At worst, it was something far more terrifying. We decided that we'd take the bag to the police in the morning. No one wanted to go to the police station at this time of night, but under daylight and after a little bit of sleep, it felt like a much more welcoming thought. The bag stayed in my car overnight. Then myself, along with 2 of my friends, took it into the authorities the next day. Apparently, they don't get a lot of people stopping by to do what we were doing, because we were met with unbelieving eyes and unserious interactions initially. Then we pulled out the box that had all the IDs in it. That was what flipped a switch for the officer that we were speaking to. He went from being wholly uninterested to being genuinely concerned for what we had. That's when the questions started coming out. Where were we the night before? What did this man look like? Was he driving a vehicle? Did he tell us anything to give us an idea of where he was going or where he might be living? Unfortunately, we didn't have any of those answers. And being dumb teens, nobody had thought to ask in the moment. The cops took the bag, they filed what little info we could give them, and then they sent us on our way. They said that they would reach out if they had any follow-up questions, but like I'm sure you can guess, we didn't hear anything further at all. Now, looking back, I wish I had taken a better look at those IDs, maybe tried harder to remember a few of the names. So I could try to look them up. But how we see situations in our 30s versus how we see them when we're 18 differ tremendously. I can only hope that there was some explanation of this that didn't go down a dark path. But all these years later, I just don't know. My wife passed away last October after fighting cancer for 3.5 long, exhausting years. Most people who know me, like friends, coworkers, even distant family members, are aware of her passing. But there's a part of this story that they don't know. A part that I don't often share because even saying it out loud feels like reopening a wound that's never really had a chance to close. My wife died of ovarian cancer that eventually metastasized. It's such a sterile medical word, metastasized. What it really means is that it spread, quietly at first and then relentlessly, until it felt like it had taken over not just her body, but both of our combined lives. When the tumor was first found, it hadn't been labeled cancerous yet. Still, the doctors made it very clear that they strongly advised immediate surgery. Remove it, get it out before it became something worse. When the biopsy came back and confirmed that it was indeed cancerous, their recommendation was only solidified. They wanted to do the removal surgery and for her to undergo chemotherapy as soon as possible. I trusted the doctors. I wanted her to trust them too. I supported every word that they said because all I cared about was buying her more time, giving her a chance to fight, a chance to get this out of her life. But this is where the manipulation comes in. My mother-in-law had always held a very strong emotional grip on my wife. Their bond was complicated, almost suffocating at times. I had seen how much sway her mother's words carried, how a suggestion from her often landed far heavier than expert advice, or even my own begging. So when the doctors told my wife to have the surgery and start chemo, her mother countered everything. She told my wife to trust nature instead. She told her to follow the same path that she had supposedly followed years earlier, when she'd had a tumor of her own. According to her, natural remedies, herbs, diet, and prayer had worked for her back then, and she convinced my wife to do the same. And my wife listened. Against the medical team, against my own desperate pleading, she followed her mother's words. For months, she stuck to those so-called remedies. I watched her drink strange teas, cut food groups out of her diet, rub oils onto her skin with the faith of someone convinced it was helping. All the while, though, I got to see her body change. Her energy dipped, her face grew thinner, and she smiled less and slept more. It clearly wasn't working. It was never going to work. By the time her body began to fail in ways that she couldn't ignore, the tumor had grown to an almost unthinkable size, 8 pounds. Imagine carrying that inside of you, something malignant, something pressing against every organ, draining every ounce of strength that you have. Along with that came several blood clots. At one point, she could barely walk without feeling pain shoot through her legs. Finally, she had the surgery. This included a full hysterectomy. They took out the tumor, removed the clots, and she endured round after round of chemotherapy. I'll admit that my wife was brave for what she went through, but unfortunately, it was already too late. The cancer had grown too aggressive, spreading in ways that the doctors couldn't stop. Her body couldn't fight it anymore, and after all those years of clinging to hope, my wife passed away on October 17th, a date that I'm not looking forward to this year. That day replays in my head constantly. The sounds of all the machines that she was hooked up to, and then the silence that followed when they stopped. The way the world seemed to tilt, as though gravity itself had changed. I live with the knowledge that maybe if things had gone differently at the beginning, she might still be here. I can't prove it, and the doctors can't say it with certainty, but I know in my heart that there was time to intervene, time to take control before it became uncontrollable. And yet, my wife listened to her mother. That's the thought that haunts me every single day. It gnaws at me when I'm laying in bed at night. I love my wife more than anything, and I begged for her to listen to reason. But her mother's voice was just louder. All her mom ever cared about was being right. She wanted to prove that her way was better than modern medicine. I don't believe she ever once considered what was truly best for her daughter. She just wanted control, and she got it, at the cost of my wife's life. I carry so much resentment toward her, it's hard to even describe the depth of it. When I see her name pop up on my phone, it's like being stabbed in the chest all over again. She sends messages pretending to be grieving, pretending to care, but all I see is the face of a person who steered my wife away from the care that could have saved her life. I don't answer these calls, and as of a few weeks ago, she's blocked now, permanently. I can't bear the thought of ever sitting across from her, ever hearing her try to justify what she did, because she would try to justify it. She would argue, she would say that she didn't know or only wanted the best. But the truth is, she wanted to be in control. And just as much as the cancer, that killed my wife. So here I find myself, alone and grieving, trying to live in a world that just feels empty and cold without my better half. Some days I wake up and the loneliness is unbearable. The bed feels too big. Our house is too quiet. I catch myself wanting to turn and tell her something trivial, a story from work or a meme that I just came across, only to remember that she isn't there anymore. People tell me that time will help, that the sharpness of grief dulls eventually, and maybe that's true. But what I don't know is whether I'll ever let go of the anger. It's the bitterness that festers when I think of her mom. She robbed me of the years I was supposed to have with my wife. She robbed my wife of the chance to fight properly, with everything that medicine could offer. Last October, I lost the love of my life, and I don't think I'll ever forgive the woman who helped to make it happen. I'm trying my best to move forward, just to put one foot out in front of the other. The problem is that some days, I'm not sure that I'm succeeding.